Hi everyone! With this video I want to start a series of videos about the myths and legends surrounding tarot, the use of tarot deck, and the future prediction overall. This time I want to talk about whether tarot has anything to do with magic or not. So let's begin. In esotericism there is a division between the instruments that we can use, and basically there are two groups of instruments. There are magic instruments and there are instruments of Manticism. Now I'll try to explain what's the difference between the two and how and when we can use it. The tools of magic have to do with influencing the reality. When we want to change something in the physical world, we could use subtle instruments, and that would be called magic. When we take the tools of the subtle world, we use them, and therefore we affect the reality. So when we want to turn the chain of events, when we want to change the behavior of other people, when we want to affect our behavior, that would be magic. On the contrary, the instruments of Manticism have nothing to do with affecting the reality. Instead, those instruments help us to get information. It has to do with the future prediction, it has to do with analyzing the present circumstances, but it has nothing to do with changing the reality. So, magic affects the reality through the subtle instruments. Instruments of Manticism help us get the needed information through the subtle world. Now, let's go through examples. Astrology, palm reading, tarot, numerology. These are all initially the instruments of Manticism. On the contrary, spells, ceremonial magic, various rituals, astral magic, this has to do with magic tools. And that is because most of the time when we use natal charts, when we use tarot cards, we use it to get some sort of information. And on the contrary, when we use rituals or spells, we want to affect the reality and change something in the real world, in the physical world. There are, of course, some exceptions. For instance, there are certain rituals that people could do using a tarot deck. But this is not common. Not many people know about that. And once again, most of the time, the reason why we use tarot is to get information first, and then sometimes to do some sort of rituals. But it's not necessary, and it's not the main purpose of a tarot deck. The question is, do tarot readers use magic? And the answer is simple. Some people do, some don't. You don't have to be a tarot reader or to know anything about tarot symbolism at all to be a good magician, wizard. I don't know how you call it, a witch. And on the contrary, you don't have to know anything about magic to be a very decent tarot reader and to know the meanings of the cards, to know very well the symbolism of tarot, to be very intuitive, to even be a clairvoyant. You don't have to know anything about magic, and you don't have to do magic. These are just different parts of esoteric world. The next question is whether tarot can affect the future. And the answer should be pretty obvious right now, since we already know that tarot is not an instrument of magic. A tarot reading will never directly affect your future, because when you get your tarot reading, all you receive is some pieces of information and advice. This is pretty much it. When you receive a piece of information, it's up to you how you use it. Which means, great news, that you should not be afraid of getting a tarot reading if you were previously afraid because you thought that tarot might affect your future, the events of the future, or how you think or how you behave, because it will not unless you make a decision to change something. And the final question concerns the practitioners, the tarot readers, and the question is whether if I am a tarot reader, I should study magic or know anything at all about magic and use it in my practice. My answer would be no. If you don't want to study magic, if you don't want to use magic, you shouldn't. I know many excellent tarot readers that never use magic. They might know something about it because sometimes it helps to read. There are some circumstances when you need to have certain knowledge about how magic works overall in order to give a proper reading. But you don't, I believe you definitely don't have to do magic. You don't have to do spells or any kind of rituals or know anything about this ceremonial magic, which is pretty complex, in order to be a very decent tarot reader. It's really up to you whether you want to use the subtle instruments to affect the reality or not. Thank you for watching this video and see you next time. Bye!